Okay, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm still playing Helldivers 2 even after all the controversy because they just don't really care about what's going on in the modern day political system, activism, or anything. They don't care that this is Pride Month. They're putting out their content the way they like it, and I just love them for that. And I think this is going to a bigger issue that I've been seeing in the gaming industry, where a lot of people are ignoring Pride Month, and I think Helldivers 2 is the best example of that. I remember this time last year, we had nothing but rainbow flags for video gaming industry titans like Xbox, like Nintendo, like Sony PlayStation. We just saw every sort of rainbow flag possible because it was Pride Month, and I think it is a good thing to celebrate these things, but when they're thrown in your face when you're just out to just play some random games, it kind of gets overbearing. I think the chaotic response that we saw last year from Pride Month has resulted in a less in-your-face situation. If you remember last year for Pride Month in the gaming industry, it was almost everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing pride flags with certain characters that represent this specific cultural impact within the gaming industry, and it just kind of spread everywhere, where it got to the point where you're just annoyed seeing this overall flag in color. And I think that's what happened to a lot of people, even people that were supporting it, where we're just seeing it thrown in our face consistently. And I think it led to the massive backlashes that we saw within corporations and companies like Target, like Bud Light, like a assortment of other companies that came out, where they were being pointed out for the hypocrisy of having these pride logos everywhere within their social media platforms, but specifically limiting the spread of this pride moment to countries that support it, like USA and Canada, and not having the same flags waved in Saudi Arabia, Russia, and other countries that are banning this type of behavior. And I think that hypocrisy kind of grated on the nerves of even the people that supported this inundation of the pride flag and the month and the celebration of it. And me, I have nothing against Pride Month initially, but its overabundance and its kind of in-your-face approach kind of annoyed me and mostly a lot of other gamers. And we've seen a significant change from last year 2023 to this year 2024, where the past few months we haven't seen really any pride flags or wavings from these corporations. They kind of been silent about it. And I think a lot of these companies are keeping their silence about it because they just realize most of the fan base really don't care about this, and they're just there for games. They don't want to hear your corporate hypocrisy out on display, where you're displaying pride flags within America, but you're afraid to do it in countries that ban this type of behavior. And it just shows that you're kind of doing this for corporate interests, and you really don't care about anyone. You just want everyone to buy your product. And I think that hypocrisy annoys everyone, including people that are within the pride movement. I think that hypocrisy probably led them to be silent. You can see the difference with Bethesda, Blizzard, Google, Xbox. They had their flags waving everywhere last year, and it's the opposite this year, where it's for almost 6 days within Pride Month that they're not even doing anything about it, and they're not showing their representation. Maybe on their personal website here or there, but it's not as brazen as they did last year, where it was just forced in your face and you were called a racist if you don't celebrate pride. And I think that's the thing people were annoyed about. And I think Helldivers 2 is probably doing the best thing about Pride Month, where they're just ignoring it completely. And I think that's what we're seeing within the game industry, where we're having updates, patches that don't have that usual pride element that's supposed to be for this month. And I think that is the thing people are impressed with some of these games that are coming out, that they're just ignoring it. And I think that's what people want in gaming. They don't want the modern day politics of society to invade the spaces where they're trying to escape into fantasy. And I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of products that are coming out, where you're seeing Helldivers 2 come out with this patch where it has all these skins and elements that you would see Call of Duty probably put in as a patch to add some pride moments, and which Call of Duty did to some backlash when they added pride bullets, which is kind of the dumbest mistake I ever saw, especially as Activision is being sued by multiple families for the Uvalde shooting, saying they influenced it, and you're putting pride bullets on display, especially when there's a lot of trans shooters out there that have been using this as a clarion call to attack people that don't have the same beliefs as them. So it's an odd situation to actually do that. I think that's the only mistake we've seen in this month's Pride Month, where we had Call Call of Duty actually put pride bullets and during a time where we're having a lot of shooters that kind of identify that way. But that's the only snafu I've seen so far. A lot of the pride elements have been reduced to certain areas and certain topics where it's not as visible, and I think that is essentially a good thing from what we're seeing. I think that's what people actually want to see. People want to see a reduction in this kind of a forceful push of this ideology, because I think it is becoming sort of an ideology now. And I think when you see like patches and war bonds and DLCs for games like Helldivers, where they had the opportunity to do it and they kind of completely skipped out on it and went the complete opposite direction and doing some sort of Predator-like version of a DLC that people actually want to play and interact with. I think that's the thing we're trying to see in gaming nowadays. We're trying to see the elements where we're actually putting in thoughts and efforts to please the player base, and I think that's the thing that we're seeing with Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is ignoring Pride Month and it's just diving into this game and making content for people to actually love and play it right now. I think we're seeing people that are producing content that is just focused on pleasing the player base this month rather than pleasing a political minority and their feelings and thoughts on an entire industry. And I think that's a positive thing I see about this year's Pride Month, where it's not focused on inundating the fan base with content that they don't care or like. And I think that's the opposite of what we're seeing this year, where it's more focused on content that we do like. But it's still a bit of negative to talk about, I have to say, because the people that have been working on inundating and just force feeding this content onto the fan base are still doing it on the games that they're producing. And I think we see this in the video game industry so far with a lot of content that is being produced now. You saw it with Concord, where there was not even one single white person in the game and very few black men in the game as well. And it's just kind of stunning to see people producing content that is ignoring the majority of the game players that actually play these games, and is trying to actually appeal to this minority fan base that has this sensitivity to these LGBTQ elements if they're absent or present in the game. I think many game players don't really care about that content. They just want good gameplay, and them making an imitation game that really is trying to follow what every other PvP shooter is doing is showing that these people are just doing things paint by the numbers, by corporate edict. They need the ESG points and DEI scores, and they need to follow the game as live service trend. Is this terrible collaboration of modern political activism and modern corporate greed, creating crap products that no one actually wants to interact with. And we're seeing this kind of spread out through the video gaming industry. We see with Silent Hill 2 the uglification of the characters that they're pushing out, and it's just, this is an everyday event in the video game development sphere, where they're just pushing out the content that no gamer wants to play. And you see this with the Pokemon update with Niantic. The avatars are still uglier than ever, and I think this is part of that push where Pride Month is just the daily occurrence in the video gaming industry. And I think it's going to be hard pressed to change, and I think that is the future of gaming. But you leave your thoughts and comments. Tell me what you think. Like, share, and subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.